They were out early one morning, panning in the stream for gold, surrounded by the rising mountains. Old prospector with a tale for two, he brushed around in the pan, and pointing out what lay within was ordinary sand. He began with his story about 20 years before, and a younger man who sought his fortune. With a tear or two he told of searching for his treasure, but making known the gold he sought was ordinary pleasure. There were years of doing without, and there were years of plenty. I started thinking that life was never steady, excepting when the bills came in and I had no money to pay. Whiskey had never tasted better ordinarily. Concluded his story as it filled the air with a laugh, saying how he found the Lord and Savior, and how he found the river of life by which his day unfolds, and pointed out what stands within is not ordinary gold, and pointing out what stands within is not ordinary gold. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Through His word we can see His wonders, signs and miracles of His love. We can return His love with devotion, standing on His word before all men. We are His beloved and His chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. promises. Through His Word we can see His wonders, signs and miracles of His love. We can return His love with devotion, standing on His word before all men. We are His beloved and His chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Believe upon His promises.
Hello, it's Mark Wallace here with True North Studio, and today the topic is Outgrow Your Space. You know, in our neighborhood there's a huge, fast-growing cottonwood tree that was planted by the city about 23 years ago when the houses were new. And this massive tree was planted as a tiny little sapling between the curb and the brand new sidewalk. But over time it started to take over the neighborhood. Well, lately its roots have lifted 4 500-pound slabs of that sidewalk a full 6 inches, making it impassable for older people and moms with strollers. It even raised and cracked my friend's entire driveway and began to overgrow and absorb the curb. Its huge branches creaked and cracked in the wind, scaring the houses near it. Plus it was a messy tree, spreading its debris all over the cul-de-sac. The thing was overlarge. That tree outgrew its space. Quote, "Don't go through life, grow through life." Eric Butterworth. You know, we need to outgrow our space in order to advance in life. I'm not talking about physical growth like building gigantic glutes or bulging biceps. I'm talking about mental, emotional, economic, and spiritual growth. The lesson here is that once you outgrow your space at your job, in your art, with your music, your sport, your ministry, new doors will immediately begin to open for you. But it's going to take conscious effort over time. Romans 12:2 from the Message says, "Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what He wants from you and quickly respond to it." Unlike the culture around you always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out of you, develops well-formed maturity in you. When you're finally ready to advance, finally ready to make more money, ready to produce better music, ready to write that book, ready to finally lose that weight, ready to put your ding in this crazy old world, then you're ready to grow. But if we keep doing the same things in the same old ways, but expect greater outcomes, it may be a little bit insane. Life doesn't work that way. As we move toward God, He moves toward us. James 4:8. As we move toward God, He moves toward us. In similar terms, as we move systematically toward what we want, it will systematically move closer and closer to us. When you believe, you receive. So what do you want? What do you need? What are you willing to put the energy into so you can move forward? Quote, "I've got a theory that if you give 100% all the time, somehow things will work out in the end." Larry Bird. It usually doesn't take one massive push. It takes daily consistency to break through. It takes small daily changes to break out of bad or no longer useful habits. Have you ever heard of the 1% rule? Have you? It tells us to set our sights on improving by only 1% each day. And those tiny changes will compound, and over time they'll generate massive growth for you. Add into your daily routine behaviors that are going to benefit you. If you're a writer, then set a time and write every day. If you're a musician, then practice every day. If you're a runner, then lace up those shoes on a schedule. If you're a mom, well, you're already doing a lot. You deserve a nap. I once left a ministry I dearly loved because it had grown one way and I grew another. I no longer fit in that space. I had learned many good things and had trained myself to live on very little, and this can be both good and bad. Good if you earn very little, and bad if you ever want abundance. After 27 moves spanning 30 years, coupled with multiple career changes, we lived Spartan. We had no extra anything, nothing to slow us down. Problem was, I had inadvertently set a mental ceiling on wealth and income. And sure, we taught abundance, and maybe in some way we lived it, but it wasn't what I wanted any longer. I knew I had to change something to change something. But what? A friend of mine saw my struggle and gave me a book about incremental changes, which I devoured and looked for more books like it. So I started reading a book a week. I began a daily exercise habit. I trained myself to get up the same time every day, way before sunrise, and worked on my teachings for an hour and a half or longer every single day. I started a small business and asked friends for side work to tide me over. I also studied for certifications and licenses to improve my situation, knowing I would need to work well into retirement. Shifting from my nomadic minister mindset to a stable working Joe took time. It didn't happen fast and it wasn't easy, but my finances slowly began to grow and I became physically, mentally, and spiritually stronger, and my teachings have hopefully slowly improved. The compounding effect of good daily habits began to become noticeable. I outgrew my space. Quote, permit yourself to change your mind when something is no longer working for you. Nidra Glover Tawwab. Isn't that how God designed this whole universe? If you want something, grow. Put in the time, put in the work, and be patient. That's how growth happens. Moving toward a thing, and if you move toward a thing, that thing is going to move toward you. That's just a spiritual principle. That's the design of creation. It's impossible to fail if we just keep failing in the right direction. Just keep growing yourself. So today, let's look at a few pointers on how to outgrow our space so we can live a life that most people only read about. Find your perfect environment. Well, first we need to find our perfect environment. During a recent visit to the Sequoia National Park in California, I saw the biggest tree on earth, the General Sherman. I had studied forestry in college, so this was bucket list. This woody giant is not the tallest, but it's by far the biggest tree on the planet. It's over 2,200 years old, and it's still growing maybe an inch wider every year. It was a young seedling when Jesus Christ was a young seedling. The General Sherman tree is so wide, it would take maybe 19 people holding hands to make a complete circle around its base. It's taller than an 11-story building. These massive trees grow naturally in only one place on Earth, the western slope of the Sierra Nevada mountains between 5,000 and 7,000 feet in elevation, with a very specific heat and humidity index. Plus, the giant sequoias are born of fire. Unlike most trees, they need wildfire. Without fire, they can't live or reproduce. Giant sequoias are typically require fire in order for their cones to open and release their seeds. Look how little that cone is compared to these massive trees. You see, I'm holding up one of the pine cones. You see, plus wildfires kill off smaller trees, punching a hole in the forest canopy and giving the big boys more light and less competition for water. The burnt undergrowth also makes a fertile seedbed for the tiny sequoia seedlings. There's only one perfect environment for the giant sequoia. What's your perfect environment? What's your perfect environment? Quote, "The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity." Amelia Earhart. I believe that as we push like hell to find and build our perfect environments, we will grow to our perfect height. In business, in sports, in music, as a parent, as a student, or as a child of the Creator. Like the giant sequoia, we too will more than fill our space if we can maintain our perfect environment. But when we get distracted from our gift, or we live out some other people's dreams, we're not only unfulfilled, but we mess with the flow of the creation. And don't mess with the flow. Quote, "Just don't give up trying to do what you really want to do. Where there is love and inspiration, I don't think you can go wrong." Ella Fitzgerald. Now is the greatest time on earth to give of ourselves, to uncover our talent, and to grow our gifts. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 11 from the Message. "Friends, this world is not your home, so don't make yourselves cozy in it. Don't indulge your ego at the expense of your soul. Live an exemplary life among the natives so that your actions will refute their prejudices. Then they'll be won over to God's side and be there to join in the celebration when He arrives. People need what you have to offer. People need you. How can you grow into your perfect environment?" Another quote, "Be not afraid of growing slowly. Be afraid only of standing still." It's an ancient Chinese proverb. Now, my wife has the uncanny ability to wade into pretty much any conversation, in any group, anywhere, and people will give her the floor and laugh at her many, many, many stories. I recently went with her to the eye doctor and heard sounds from the examination room. This sounds laughing, okay? And, not just chuckles, but full-on belly laughing. And when she and the eye doctor walked out of the room, they strolled down the hall, still talking, shoulder to shoulder, and talked like they were best buddies forever. Well, I thanked the doctor, reached out and shook his hand, but he didn't even look at me. He didn't give me eye contact. She was the only blip on his radar screen. I just shook my head. That's Josephine. She's using her gift. Josephine is a unicorn when it comes to fast friendships. She does something that touches people's soul in minutes. She has honed her gift since childhood, and she's made hundreds of friends. I've seen her connect instantly with doctors, lawyers, moms, kids, retail employees, local mega church preachers, and mafia dons. She uses her gift in ways I don't come close. She grows herself into her perfect environment no matter where she goes, and she does it effortlessly. Sorry about that. Quote, "It's never too late to be who you might have been." It's never too late to be who you might have been. George Eliot. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. "When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put childish things behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." Quote, "Life's challenges are not supposed to paralyze you. They're supposed to help you discover who you are." Bernice Johnson Reagan. In our future, we will clearly see the totality of who we were meant to be. Until that time, we keep plugging, we keep growing. It's not always easy. Romans 5:3. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. Good verse. Quote, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Frederick Douglass. There's no struggle, there's no progress. Even with the Spirit of God, growth can be painful at times. But any suffering we face can yield incredible learning, build strong character, and teach us to persevere. We can handle far more than we think we can. David Goggins, a former Navy SEAL and ultra athlete, said, quote, don't stop when you're tired, stop when you're done, end of quote. Then he adds, quote, when you think that you are done, you're only 40% into what your body's capable of doing. That's just the limits that we put on ourselves, end of quote. So why limit our growth? Why? Philippians 3:14 from the ESV, I press on toward the goal to win the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. Paul is speaking here of the growth mindset. Growth requires consistent practice, a consistent push. As long as we live on this side of heaven, we're going to have to do this. One day we will arrive, but as long as we're on this earth, there will always be room for growth. Once those giant sequoias find their ideal environment and start growing, they keep growing for a long, long time. Now some practical tips for personal growth. When I was a young forestry student in Nacogdoches, Texas, we were required to spend many hours in the East Texas woods identifying trees by their leaves, bark, branch, or fruit. And I loved every second of it, every second of it. On our final exam, we had to be able to identify over 100 trees by looking at a leaf, a twig, its fruit, or bark. We also had to know them by their Latin names, many of which I still remember. Some I don't want to remember. One blazingly hot East Texas day, I came across a large tree in full leaf that I didn't recognize. The bark and twigs told me it was a red oak, but the leaves weren't oak-like at all. The three-part leaflets told me a completely different story. Well, I stared at it for a few minutes trying to make sense. I looked at the ground for acorns or fruit, but I didn't find any. And it was weird to me. Every branch was covered with green and red leaves. It was majestic, yet something was wrong. Something didn't fit on this tree. It was weird. I walked around the tree looking for anything that could help me identify it, and then I saw it. On the far side of the huge tree was a hairy vine as thick as my arm, growing straight up the backside of that tree and spreading out into every branch and twig of that once mighty oak. The vine had been there so long it had grown into the tree. It choked the life out of it, and it overtook every single branch. It was poison ivy. That vine overgrew its space and overtook another. When we stop growing, the world will still try to stifle us, grow into us. Quote, we are products of our past, but we don't have to be prisoners of it. Rick Warren. At times we need to evaluate what we are thinking about, what we're doing, review what our goals have morphed into, and make sure it's still the direction we want to go. Romans 12:2 from the TLB. Okay. Well, let me see. Let me see what this says. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but be a new and different person with a fresh newness in all you do and think. quote, the swiftest way to triple your success is to double your investment in personal development. Robin Sharma. So how do we outgrow our space? Here are a few basic things that have helped me. Read more or listen to audible books. Reading is one of the fastest ways to grow as a person. You're putting the wisdom of the ages into your mind. Reading changes you. Next thing, exercise daily. Even if it's just for a few minutes, never miss a day. Do something. Do something. Walk around the house, walk around the block, do something. Exercise every day. Get your body moving. We're designed to move for 100 years. You see, next one, eat better, drink more water, and get more sleep. We hear about these all the time, right? Okay, I don't need to say anything about those. Here's one. This is one I like. Use the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule, which tells us that if we can do some task in 2 minutes or less, then tackle it right then. Don't delay. This action will deliver long-term benefits and make your partner very happy. Take out the trash. Just take it out. Clean up that desk. At least get started. Do some dishes. Clean a dish. Give a hug. Write that note. You can do that in 2 minutes. Text somebody or post something. When you have a couple of minutes, just do something. Here's another one. Learn from setbacks. Now, we all know that. But keep moving in the direction you want to go. There will always be setbacks as you progressively move forward. Next one. Keep your self-talk positive. Never, ever put yourself down, even silently to yourself. Treat yourself at least as good as you treat your friends. And I'm going to add here, if we talk to our friends the way we talk to ourselves, we wouldn't have any friends. So why do we do it? Why do we do it? Be good to yourself. Quote, the will to win, the desire to succeed, the urge to reach your full potential, these are the keys that will unlock the door to personal excellence. Confucius. Now here's some ways to grow financially. Okay, first one, start investing and gradually increase the amount year after year. Even 1% a year will bring a significant results over time, but don't wait. Remember the old saying, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. Just get started with investing. Just get started. Next one, push for the salary you deserve. Push for the salary you deserve. Get paid what you're worth. You may have to ask your boss. You may have to push your boss. But you know what you're worth. Remember, if you're too big for the job, then you've outgrown that space. You want to make yourself too big for the job that you're in. Then you're worth more money. You want to be too big for your space. And the last one of this financial is to start a side hustle, a side business. And this is a great way to build extra income as you grow your finances. A lot of people do it. Quote, someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. Warren Buffett. Now that works physically, and it also works financially. So here's some ways to grow spiritually. Here's a few verses that have really helped me. And I'm just going to use verses here. Okay, you're going to have to spin that again for me. Thanks. Okay. Matthew 7:7. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. See, ask, seek, knock, and you shall receive. Push like hell and never ever quit on your goals and desires. Keep knocking until that door opens. Remember that the verses about importunity? overly persistent asking. That's how Jesus said we're supposed to pray. You just you ask and you ask and you ask and you knock and you seek until you get what you want. You pray that way and we live that way. Now Luke 6:38 from the CEB. Okay, so, all right. Give and it will be given to you. A good portion, packed down, firmly shaken and overflowing, will fall into your lap. The portion you give will determine the portion you receive in return. Basically, give like crazy. Give like crazy. We all know this. You see, Ecclesiastes 9:10, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might, for there's no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. So if you're going to take the time to do something, then put your whole heart into doing it. No half efforts, no half measures. Life has a time limit. Life has a time limit. You see, then Ephesians 3:20, now unto him that's able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. See, use the tools that God gave you and watch for that abundance. Psalm 84:11, no good thing will he withhold from them that walk uprightly. Do the right thing in the right amounts and nothing will be withheld from you. 2 Timothy 2:15, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Put on some truth every day. Some truth, through study. Or maybe just read a verse or an IG post from someone you connect with who sends you verses. Or just enjoying the words that come from the group that you love. See, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. I can do. That's plenty of verses for now. That's enough. We all have our favorites, and they're all good, okay? This is all that we had time for. Now here's another quote. If you don't make the time to work on creating the life you want, you're eventually going to be forced to spend a lot of time dealing with the life you don't want. Kevin Nago. So if we want to prosper in any aspect of our life, we have to outgrow our space. We have to outgrow our space. Isn't that how God designed this whole universe? It is. Grow toward a thing. Grow toward a thing. And that thing is going to grow toward you. That's what James said. James was the brother of Jesus. You move toward God and he'll move towards you. You see, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. Mark Twain. My neighborhood cottonwood outgrew its space. Those giant sequoias grew because of their perfect environment. That huge poison ivy vine grew up and spread into that oak tree. If we're going to break past whatever's stopping us or slowing us down, let's never stop growing as a person. Let's build an ideal environment for us to flourish within, and let's not allow the weeds of life to choke the life out of us. I think it's time that we all outgrow our space. God bless.